54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory. Welcome to this special edition of Africa 54.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation co-chair Bill Gates sounds the alarm on climate change. How an entrepreneur is building affordable housing in Uganda. And a vintage solo performance by the late Olivier Tuku and Mtukudzi.
World leaders gathered in Glasgow for a pivotal climate summit, COP26. Experts warn that climate change and global warming may reach catastrophic levels if more is not done to address issues such as cutting greenhouse gas emissions. According to the United Nations, about 4 billion people have been affected by events related to the changing climate over the last decade, including deadly floods, wildfire, droughts, and malnutrition. Africa 54 correspondent Lino Mudu spoke in an exclusive interview with Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who joined her from the climate summit, and asked him how concerned we should be about climate change.
Climate change is one of the biggest challenges mankind has ever faced, because year by year, because of these carbon emissions, the climate will be getting hotter. And that means, particularly anywhere near the equator, the ability to do outdoor farming or outdoor construction work will become impossible. And so that'll really destabilize people who live in these tropical zones. We have to do two things. We have to stop those emissions. And then in the meantime, we need to help countries adapt to these changing weather conditions. For example, giving them better seeds that can deal with the increased temperature. This meeting, I was at the Paris meeting 6 years ago. This one's, bigger and broader. So there is some attention, but, we still have to do a lot more.
The Paris meeting, which happened in 2015, how much progress have been made since then? And how are we going to know that COP26 is a success?
We've deeply engaged the private sector. We've identified the need for innovation and how we get every sector working together to drive that innovation. And we're now paying significant effort to adaptation. Those three things were not there in Paris. I'm not saying that the commitments here are good enough. We need to say over the next 5 years, the same type of increased engagement on the different issues, including the innovation that's focused on the adaptation.
Innovation is something that you discuss in your book you released this year, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. What sorts of innovation you just mentioned? Seed. What else are you referring to?
The big announcement from us is that we're part of the AIM for C, adaptation, innovation for climate change. A big part of that is this helping the smallholder farmers. A number of countries are announcing increased resources, including President Biden will make significant announcements. We're announcing $315 million over the next 3 years for the seed consortium, which is called the CG system, that makes the seeds for all the different countries. The big priority for that money will be seeds that can be even more productive despite the challenge of climate change. We expect that an additional $1 billion, including our money, will be committed to that effort. That has the potential to benefit literally hundreds of millions of these smallholder farmers.
Some studies show that poor families in developing countries are often the least to blame for man-made climate change. However, they bear the worst of the impact. What are your thoughts on the impact of climate change in underdeveloped countries, especially in a region like Africa?
It's a great injustice. My interest in climate change came from seeing that through our agricultural work in Africa, the farmers were often having a more difficult time. And so they're already facing these difficulties, which will get significantly worse between now and the end of the century. I studied the issue of climate change And the Gates Foundation took on this adaptation as a big priority. That wasn't getting much attention, so I joined together with some others to create the Commission on Adaptation.
What do you think all of us can do to contribute in this global solution in fighting climate change?
There are products that have lower emissions. It'll be very different in different countries. In the rich countries, we are starting to have food indications of which kinds of food cause what emissions. We have more and more electric cars. For the individual, a political engagement is also important. This is a problem where we have to make near-term investments, even some short-term sacrifice to get the long-term benefit of not having drastic climate change impacts. And so educating people that this is very worth doing, particularly getting young people engaged. We have to start now on this work. It's a tougher problem to solve than even, say, the pandemic was. The pandemic, we invented one tool. We still don't have that out to everyone, but the vaccine gave us a chance to finish over time the pandemic. With climate change, we need lots and lots of tools.
There are those who still don't believe in climate change, whether it's by willful ignorance or factual ignorance. What do you say to them?
The evidence, sadly, is getting much stronger. I believe this is a very solvable problem. My experience in these last 6 years is that we really are starting the innovations. I've been able to fund through my breakthrough energy efforts a lot of new companies. And now the next 5 years, we need to take those ideas and deploy them, not just in the rich world, but also in developing countries, including Africa.
Bill Gates, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was Africa 54 correspondent Lino Mtukudzi speaking with Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Uganda boasts nearly 47.4 million people, according to the latest United Nations data. But perhaps not surprising is that there is a housing shortage estimated at over 2.4 million units. Anne Rayora, a Ugandan social entrepreneur, is on a mission to change that narrative and provide a pathway to home ownership for low-income families. For more, Africa 54's technology correspondent Paul Ndio via Skype spoke to Anne Rayora, co-founder and CEO of Smart Havens Africa, based in Kampala, Uganda.
Anne Rayora, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
You run a social enterprise in Uganda. You are on a mission to empower millions of women to own their own homes. How did you get started?
Getting started was way back when I lost my father, and seeing how my mother had spent more than 50% of her income on ensuring that she pays for the home that we were staying in. That is after we lost our own home to our relatives. It was very difficult, and also meeting a co-founder who also lived even a worse housing situation. He was a street vendor, and putting all our problems together rather than sit back and complain, we saw there was an opportunity to help women like my mother not face the same challenge by providing an affordable, sustainable pathway towards home ownership.
How many houses have you built so far?
Since we started, we have been able to build 80 homes at the moment, and our core goal is to ensure that we establish harmonious communities in which people can ably live and have a decent life to live with their children.
When you talk to some of these women that you've empowered, helped to own a home, what are their stories?
I will recap from one of the women that is in our home. she had a family with young girls growing up and living in a slum-like environment. Her children were never secure since this was an environment that had alcohol addicts, that had different situations that made her and her children uncomfortable to live in that situation. So getting us gave her a peaceful environment for her children to play, and she could comfortably be at her workplace with no worries.
How inexpensive or how expensive are your homes?
We have a rent to own housing model that helps low income households afford these homes without further deepening their poverty. They are able to pay a monthly payment, roughly 520,000 Uganda shillings minimum on a monthly rate for a period of 5 to 8 years. And this monthly fee is always a contribution towards their ownership, towards the purchase of this house. But what is very unique with our homes is that you enter in the homes as soon as you start paying for it. When you complete your payment plan, we convert the titles to the household head and they become very independent.
Who inspires you?
I'm greatly inspired by my mother and seeing the challenges that she has overcome, seeing how she turns the challenges into opportunities to educate the 8 of us from my family. It was a very small task, I could say. And this greatly inspires me to always look at challenges and create opportunities.
This is a very, very ambitious project. It requires you to have funds readily available for you to be able to do what you do. How are you able to pull this off?
We started with the little finances that we had, was able to attract other interested partners who align and believe in our overall mission of ending housing poverty in Africa, and also considering the revenues that we generate from the homes, from those who are already staying in the homes, keep helping us to build more and more homes.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, that was Africa 54's tech correspondent Paul Dio speaking to Anne Riora, co-founder and CEO of Smart Havens Africa, based in Kampala, Uganda. Now, having a disability is difficult anywhere in the world, but it is especially difficult in most African countries. The United Nations estimates that about 80 million people have disabilities in Africa. In Nigeria, an initiative for National Growth Africa is leveraging technology to offer STEM programs, career training for people with disabilities in robotics, assistive technology for children, and advocacy for policies that impact people with disabilities. For more insight, Africa 54's technology correspondent Paul Dihon via Skype spoke to Rachel Igbedion, founder Initiative for National Growth Africa in Lagos, Nigeria.
Rachel Inebadion, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much.
You run an incredible program where you're trying to empower people with disabilities by giving them tech skills, robotic skills, basically trying to give them another lease on life. Speak to me about that.
Our innovation is just simply about preferring adaptive learning opportunities through leadership and technology projects for persons with disability. It cuts across disabilities such as Down syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, visual impairment, and cerebral palsy. We try to engage so that they can have the best in terms of learning experience and then transit into jobs. So in collaboration with several developmental organizations in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, we combine technology and special needs education in order to provide these learners with disability with the opportunity to enhance their communication skills while learning about robotics, physics, drones piloting, even electricity. And after which these young adults with Down syndrome, autism, and visual impairment are able to learn how to integrate into internships. Majorly, our impact is just helping to promote social and economic inclusion, for persons who have been historically marginalized, especially people with disability.
What made you look for this particular niche where you're trying to provide a service to a community that is quote unquote either culturally marginalized or people who are left out of the society? How did you think about coming up with a program that empowers them?
Close to 6 years ago, I visited a home for persons with disability, some part of my community in Lagos. And when I go there, usually there's this model that when you go to that place, you're expected to be able to sing. Like the children there, you have children with autism, Down syndrome, visual impairment, just all in that place. So on that fateful day, there was a 24-year-old girl with cerebral palsy that did not have a wheelchair. She was just on the floor, but she had a very beautiful voice, and that really struck me. And she sang beyond the limit. And in my presence, I saw a caregiver take out her slipper and struck the girl on her head and say, "You shut up, you're singing, it's okay, don't sing anymore." I mean, for me, it was really very derogatory. It was dehumane. And for me, I felt I needed to do something about it. I was really triggered. And then I told the lady that I was going to take this up. And I went to the management and I said, "Hey, madam, this is what I saw." And the lady was so, you know how people try to cover up. I said, "Hey, she's just trying to discipline." I said, "That's not discipline." So we changed that status quo. And even that girl now I'm talking about, she is now a sign language interpreter.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Exactly. We ensure that from then to now, we're able to provide her with the right skills that will build her to become a better person in the society, and then she can be able to earn for herself.
Well, let me take this opportunity to thank you and your team for doing that courageous work. It takes a bit of courage to be able to do something extraordinary like that. Have the conditions changed at that institution?
Yes, it has changed, because we constantly try our best to engage with the caregivers to retrain them on the newest models of how they can relate with children and young adults with disability.
You talked about some of the programs that you are giving these people. Are they using them to find jobs? Are they using them to uplift themselves out of that environment that they are in?
Most of our programs are hinged, like I mentioned, they are hinged on STEM and robotics, like educational technology, whereby it is designed to support, assist, and augment their leadership skills so that they can actually access jobs. So we do things like robot-assisted instructions, such as circuit robots, drones, piloting. We help learners with disabilities to improve their interpersonal skills, because we understand that these are vital components of the STEM and robotics capacity building sections with the young adults with Down syndrome, autism, visual impairment. It just helps them to quickly learn life skills, and they apply them to natural and organic situations around them, and even people who are non-disabled.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that again was Africa 54's tech correspondent, Pondil, speaking to Retro Egbedion, who joined us from Lagos, Nigeria. Still in West Africa, a Ghanaian entrepreneur is helping prepare students in rural areas for the modern economy by teaching them about robotics. His roaming classes have been so successful that Ghana's Minister of Education has adopted the lessons in schools. Victoria Munga reports from Accra, Ghana.
Jonathan Kennedy's goal is to enable students from poor backgrounds like himself to access information technology. To help him do that, he founded InnovTech STEM Center. Hundreds of students have enrolled to learn about robotics in mobile classes set up mostly in rural areas.
We are aiming at inspiring students anywhere they are, that their background, where they come from, do not matter when it comes to STEM. STEM is for everyone, and it doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor, it's for everyone. So the goal is to inspire and empower them.
STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, key areas of knowledge for job seekers in the 21st century. However, fewer than 10% of Ghanaians have access to information technology equipment like computers, according to the country's statistical service. Kennedy's roaming classes are helping to bridge that gap and showing children that technology is fun.
First, I thought robot was meant for only guys, but now I've learned a whole lot about robots, and I'll be very glad to teach others, because at first I thought robot was hard, it's difficult, and I cannot even think of doing anything about robot, but now, like, I'm perfect. I know more things about robots.
Ghanaian authorities have now added robotics education to the country's new standard curriculum.
Robotics education opens the minds of the learners. It makes them think and become problem solvers. So we start from the basic level upwards. Because of that, we have opened robotic clubs in many of our schools, where we are gradually taking them through the basics of robotics. So many institutions are also coming on board, NGOs are coming on board, collaborating with the science education unit to make sure that robotic education becomes part and parcel of our educational system.
A majority of the fastest growing occupations in Ghana and elsewhere require STEM skills and knowledge. Kennedy and Ghanaian authorities are hoping the strategy will equip youngsters for the modern economy. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Accra, Ghana.
Now, what better way to say hello to the weekend than with one of Africa's greatest voices of all time? A host of Music Time in Africa, Heather Maxwell, presents this timeless solo performance by the late Oliver Tuku Mtukudzi.
In 2013, the late Oliver Mtukudzi performed a solo set of songs from his 60th album, Sarawoga. Here's Huroi, To the Woman We Share, dedicated to Tuku's wife and his late son's mother. Beautiful.
Thank you.
It did beautiful. That great son of Zimbabwe may have passed on, but his music will live on. And that's all for this special edition of Africa 54. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, thanks for watching.